Imagine standing in the middle of the Great Plains, nothing but wind in your ears, and the endless horizon stretching before you. Then, the ground begins to tremble. You hear it before you see it. A low, thundering rumble. Suddenly, an ocean of muscle and fur bursts over the hill. Thousands of American bison. Their massive heads lowered, their hooves pounding the earth like a living storm. 4 centuries, this was the heartbeat of North America. But today, you'd be lucky to see even a small herd. What happened to these mighty creatures, and what can we do to ensure their thunder never fades? To understand the story of the American bison, we have to go back, way back. Not hundreds, not thousands, but over 2 million years. Their ancestors roamed across Asia and Europe before crossing the ancient land bridge from Siberia into North America. They were bigger back then. Some species stood taller than a man's head, even at the shoulder, with horns that could span over 6 feet. As the Ice Age gave way to warmer climates, the modern bison emerged. Smaller than their ancestors, but no less impressive. With a hump of muscle above their shoulders, built for plowing through deep snow, and thick, woolly coats that could withstand blizzards. The American bison became perfectly adapted to life on the plains. They were not just survivors. They were architects of the ecosystem. Their grazing patterns shaped the land, keeping the grasslands healthy. Their sheer weight and movement aerated the soil, allowing new plants to flourish. They even carved trails that would later be used by native peoples, traders, and eventually pioneers. For countless generations, they moved in vast herds, some numbering in the tens of millions. Imagine a sea of brown, moving endlessly across the horizon, reshaping the land as they passed. For the Native American tribes of the Great Plains, the bison was more than just an animal. It was life itself! Every part of the bison was used. Meat for food, hides for clothing and shelter, bones for tools, sinew for bones. The animal also held deep spiritual meaning, woven into creation stories and sacred rituals. To take a bison's life was never casual. It was a transaction of respect, gratitude, and survival. But with the arrival of European settlers, the bison's world began to crumble. At first, the hunting was for fur and hides, a profitable trade that turned into a deadly industry. Then, the U.S. government recognized another use for bison slaughter: to force native tribes onto reservations by destroying their primary food source. Between the mid-1800s and 1880s, the plains turned into killing fields. Trains full of passengers would stop in the middle of herds, allowing hunters to shoot from the cars for sport. Skulls piled in mountains. Carcasses were left to rot. From an estimated 30 to 60 million bison, their numbers plummeted to less than 1,000 by the late 19th century. It was one of the most devastating mass slaughters in human history. And yet, against the odds, a few small groups of people, ranchers, conservationists, and indigenous leaders, stepped in. They gathered the last survivors and began breeding programs. Slowly, the bison returned from the brink, though never to their former glory. Today, the American bison is no longer on the edge of extinction. But their story is far from over. Around 500,000 bison now live in North America. But here's the catch. The vast majority are in private herds, often managed like cattle for meat production. Only about 20,000 are in truly wild, free-ranging herds, living as they once did. Their original territory, a sprawling range from Canada to Mexico, has been reduced to fragments. And the threats keep coming. Habitat loss is the biggest. As farmland, cities, and highways spread, bison have fewer places to roam. Fences cut off migration routes that their ancestors followed for thousands of years. Disease from cattle, like brucellosis, can infect wild herds, sparking controversial calls to protect livestock industries. Climate change adds another layer of challenge, with droughts and unpredictable weather patterns threatening the grasslands they depend on. One example is Yellowstone National Park, home to one of the largest and most genetically pure wild herds. Here, bison roam, as they once did, but even they face danger. In harsh winters, they leave the park in search of food, only to encounter fences, highways, and armed conflict with ranchers, worried about disease transmission. The result: hundreds are often killed in government-sanctioned hunts each year. So, what does all of this say about us? About humanity. On one hand, we're the reason the bison nearly vanished. On the other, we're also the reason they still exist at all. We've shown we can be both destroyers and saviors. It's a bit like that friend who borrows your car, crashes it, then proudly announces they paid for the repairs. You're grateful, but also, really, and yet there's hope. Tribal nations like the Blackfeet, Sioux, and Assiniboine are leading efforts to restore bison to their ancestral lands. These projects aren't just about conservation. They're about healing cultural wounds, revitalizing traditions, and restoring the balance between people and the land. Scientists, too, are working to protect genetic diversity and study how bison grazing can help combat climate change by keeping grasslands healthy and storing carbon. If you've never seen a wild bison up close, I'll tell you, it's humbling. They're not just big, they're living symbols of endurance. Watch one move, and you'll see history in every step. The Ice Age migrations, the centuries of partnership with indigenous peoples, the chaos of the 19th century slaughter, and the slow, stubborn comeback. But here's the thing: their future isn't guaranteed. Whether they continue to thrive depends on the choices we make right now. Do we keep fencing them in, reducing them to tourist attractions and meat products? Or do we give them space to roam, letting them be what they were always meant to be? Wild, free, and untamed. So, if the thought of the Great Plains without that ancient thunder in the distance feels wrong to you, good. It should, because we still have a chance to write the next chapter in the Bison's story. One where we choose coexistence over control, respect over exploitation, and protection over profit. And maybe, just maybe, one day, future generations will stand in the middle of the plains, feel the ground shake beneath them, and watch the horizon fill with bison once again. If you believe in that vision, don't just sit with it, act on it. Support conservation groups. Learn from indigenous-led restoration efforts. Speak up for policies that protect wild lands and migration routes. And of course, if you enjoyed this journey into the bison's past, present, and future, hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe to Wild Minds AI for more stories that keep the wild alive. Your voice, your actions, and yes, even your clicks can help ensure that the bison's thunder will echo across the plains for centuries to come.